How's it going, everybody? Welcome to Rolling Lines and Apples and Geno's production. My name's Josh Hutchinson. I am jacked to be back this week. We're live on YouTube and X, so check out the link that we sent out, and join us in the chat. Send us some questions. We love having the conversation with our live listeners and viewers. We're going to be talking about streaming candidates, the Leafs goalie tandem situation, the Philadelphia Flyers. And as usual, we'll be taking your mailbag questions. But first, let's hit the intro music, baby. One of these days we're gonna get this figured out so that it doesn't sound so awkward when I'm like hitting the intro music and there's like a big long pause. But anyways, we're still sorting out all the little live show quirks. How you doing, Binksy?
I'm good, man. We're clearly amateur professionals, right?
Oh yeah.
The end of the show last week, I was like, and go
It's so
outro,
funny
just
because you
just
laughed at
on
me.
camera, like dead.
You laughed at me the week before when I did that, and then I was watching you after you did it. I'm like, oh, he did the same thing.
It's inherently funny. Someone just
That is very
panicking
funny.
on live camera. You're like,
What do I do? Oh man.
Exactly.
Well,
We're doing the best we can.
We're
All you
we're
can
doing the
do.
best we can. Yeah. All right. Well, let's jump into our first segment here. We're gonna talk
Let's do
about
it.
PowerPlay Planner. So,
Do it.
PowerPlay Planner is where we take a look at the schedule for the next 7 days. It's a little bit different than the waiver wire segment because we're going midweek to midweek. And we're going to help you dominate your fantasy league with us as we dissect the previous week and examine the upcoming schedule. So, let's talk about the last 7 days. So there were a few things that happened last 7 days. There were a few undefeated teams. That was Boston, Dallas, Vegas, Colorado, New Jersey. No surprises there, really. Those are all pretty much the teams that were at the top of the league last year. So no huge surprises there. Vegas, Colorado, and Boston, I believe, are all undefeated on the season still. So both, all of them off to red hot starts. Boston's was still riding hot goaltending. They have the best team save percentage in the league again. It's like 965 or something like that, just something insane like that. So they're clearly accounting for their lack of center depth with just overall team defense. So yeah, they're better than I thought they were going to be. But I guess someone was saying they have a pretty weak schedule so far. So we'll see when they start playing against contenders. But some surprising teams that were winless last week. We've got the Ottawa Senators, the Carolina Hurricanes, the Pittsburgh Penguins, and the Edmonton Oilers. The Oilers, second last in the NHL right now. And Connor McDavid is out. It's not looking good for the Oilers right now. And then in terms of individual performances, our top 5 point getters within the last week are Dylan Larkin, Jack Hughes, Mikko Rantanen, Nikita Kucherov, and Ryan Hartman after his hat trick and 5-point night last night. There were so many stories of people that benched him. I am one of those people. Yeah, I mean, what are you gonna do? Like he was a fringe roster player. You're not expecting Ryan Hartman to put up a 5-point night. So a lot of people in pain after last night. But yeah, and I mean, any other notes about the last week here, Banksy?
I was also riding shotgun on the Hartman on the bench train. So he was a late draft for me in a lot of spots because I was excited to get a top line player at right wing with such like scarcity. But, in the god awful name for this, the frenzy of
Oh yeah.
games, it was just like it was not going to happen. So I think we probably weren't alone in that. Um, Yeah, I mean, the surprising winless teams, like Carolina got some injury concerns, right? They things being mixed around in net. That's not super shocking. Pittsburgh is up and down and they played some really quality teams, so not super shocking there. Ottawa is a little bit more surprising, but they were definitely in those games, but I mean, the Oilers are just like a tire fire right now. Like it's so bad that Matthias Janmark is on the top line for them right now. Like things are like when Fogel is one of your better players at the
Yeah.
moment, like you're really in for it, and it's showing in fantasy hockey. Like there's so many people out there that are like, what do I do with Nurse? Because this can't go on like this. So
Yeah,
yeah,
man.
it's
Evan
rough.
Bouchard has been scoring and he's been fantasy relevant, but I don't know if you've seen any of the highlights, but there have been many goals scored on the Oilers that were directly Evan Bouchard's fault. He's been a disaster defensively. So not looking good over there for sure.
I saw a fake account post out that all of the front office and management had been canned effective immediately, and it's been so bad for them that I actually bought it for half a second.
Yeah, no, it wouldn't be
It's been
surprising.
that
Yeah.
bad. So yeah, I don't
All
know.
right.
Like
Well,
other than Detroit just being on an absolute burner, it's not all that surprising. Like
yeah.
not sure what to do with Edmonton, but you have to imagine they'll rebound.
Yeah, I mean, you can't hold down Draisaitl and McDavid for long. And McDavid does it. It sounds like he's not going to be out for too long, so hopefully that's not going to be a lingering injury. Um, so let's talk about the next 7 days. So we've got to finish out this week. We've got Minnesota and San Jose with 3 games on 2 off nights between Thursday and Sunday. So those are the best schedules, at least to finish out your week. So you want to be targeting guys from those teams. San Jose, it's going to be pretty easy to stream guys from that team. Minnesota had a pretty good week long schedule, so a lot of the streamers from Minnesota are probably going to be snapped up by now. But you could look at guys like Marcus Johansson or Marco Rossi. But then San Jose, I mean, essentially their whole team is going to be streamable. They're not really highly rostered in a lot of situations, so you can kind of take your pick there. But I mean, I don't really know that you're going to want to. It's going to kind of be boom or bust. And then New Jersey, Washington, and Buffalo all have 2 games with 2 off nights left, so they're all. I mean, they're all good options for streamers, but again, a lot of those guys are probably going to be snapped up at this point because they've all had pretty good week-long schedules. Arizona, Chicago, Dallas, Florida, Nashville, and Tampa, they only have 1 game left this week, so you're probably not going to be wanting to stream guys from those teams. Dallas and Tampa actually have no games after Thursday, so if you're looking to pick up guys for the Friday Sunday streamers, those are you're probably going to want to drop any fringe guys from Dallas and Tampa. And then Arizona and Chicago have no games after Friday. But then going into next week, there are no Monday, Tuesday back-to-backs. No teams have a Monday, Tuesday back-to-back, but there are a number of Monday, Wednesday starts. So Anaheim, Arizona, Dallas, and Philly all have Monday to Wednesday starts. And then in terms of week long, Philly has the best overall streaming schedule next week with 4 games and 2 off nights. So actually not a lot of like amazing streaming schedules for next week, but Philly is probably your best bet. And then Edmonton, Minnesota, Washington, San Jose, and Ottawa all don't play next week until Thursday. So if you have any streamers that you were streaming in from Washington or Minnesota this week with their nice schedules, you're probably going to want to drop them for guys on Philly or Dallas or whoever. Our power play planner player to watch of the week is, who is it, Binksy?
It's Frank the Tank, baby. It's Frank
So
the Tank Vetrano.
yeah, buddy.
32% rostered and rising. And
So
how?
I actually made a
So,
mistake on the notes. He's actually now 49% rostered. So not as easy to
so
stream at this point. People are noticing.
I actually said that wrong to highlight how wrong you were.
Oh
Uh,
no.
so 49% and actually now 50%. And since
Oh
the
god.
time I started writing these notes, it wouldn't shock me if it went higher than that. So absolutely a viable player. As you've literally written here, always been a guy with nice underlying numbers, but it's never really translated into anything, right? He was never getting the burn across his career. The teams that he was on really just kind of too talented to need him to do what he does really well, which is shoot the puck. The ice time, the highest of his career, over 19 minutes, and the shot rates are above career averages, which is quite good on his career average. So I am all over that. Huge fan of Vetrano, especially at the cost to acquire. Maybe a little bit less so day before yesterday than right now, but certainly at the end of your drafts and as a viable streamer, as everyone knows, they are the off night champs, right? So going to be
Mhm.
viable for you, even if he doesn't fit into a certain template of your schedule right now. Like, really would have been my suggestion for the ad for the show today, but out of range. So, say la vie.
Yeah, he's getting above that 50% mark. So if he's out there, I would definitely be picking him up. Yeah, I mean, I think at the start of last year, he was one of my sleepers for Anaheim because I just felt like his underlying numbers were nice and he was going to get an opportunity there, but didn't get the ice time I expected and just didn't convert. I mean, no one on Anaheim was playing well at all. But they've looked a little bit stronger to start the year this year. They look like
Absolutely.
there's a little more gas in the tank, and Frank Toronto has been great. Obviously, not going to be scoring a goal every single game the way he has been, but I mean, definitely a guy that you should be watching out for. He seems like he may be set up for some career highs here. All right, let's move on to shift change. So this is our ad drop segment, and we're gonna guide you through roster moves and winning strategies. So first, we'll talk about the top 10 most added skaters. So this is just in the past 24 hours. So Binksy, why don't you take us through those guys there?
Top 10 most added skaters. And again, this is a 50% rostership or lower. Number one, Ryan Johansson at 21%. Number two, the PowerPlay Planner Man of the Week, Frank Petrano at 50 plus percent as we go through it. Dylan DeMello is third place at 10%. Matthew Poitras at 5% is your fourth slot. Fifth is Martin Feherbari at 6%. Braden McNabb, a surprising 34%, given just the shambles that the defensive unit in Vegas is in. Paul Cotter also for Vegas at 5%. Jonas Siegenthaler next up at 13%. Then William Carlson at 25% and Michael McLeod at 2%. So some of those pretty obvious and some of them a little bit surprising for me. What do you think?
Yeah, so just a few things about some of these guys. So Johansson obviously is red hot right now, playing on the top power play for Colorado and converting quite a bit. He's actually shooting a little bit more than he usually does, so that's really nice for Johansson. Vetrano, obviously we already talked about him, but he's red hot, and he's honestly doesn't even factor into this category anymore since he's more than 50% rostered. Dylan DeMello, I noticed when I was looking at potential streamers, he has been pretty hot. He's scored a couple goals to start the year. So I don't know. Maybe people are just like, who is the highest scoring defenseman right now, and they see Dylan DeMello and they've been adding him. So not really sure. I mean, I don't think that's he's really a super viable streamer right
Mm-mm.
now. Matthew Poitras is the rookie for Boston. And he has 3 goals in his last 2 games. So that's not a huge surprise that people are picking him up. He's also he's getting a pretty decent opportunity. He's playing with Jake DeBrusk right now, 5v5. I think he's playing on the second power play as well. But yeah, another guy that I think if Boston has a good schedule, he's maybe a good streamer, but
Mm-hmm.
um, I think people are just getting really hyped about. I mean, people get hyped about when rookies get hot. So
Yeah.
that's not a big surprise. Farivari has a good schedule. So in Bangers Cats, that's a nice pickup. He's got 3 games. He plays tonight on the Wednesday and then Friday, Sunday. Braden McNabb, like you said, Vegas's defense is in shambles, and maybe that's why he's getting picked up is because he's getting
He's
a
been
ton of ice
playing
time,
well.
and
He's
and
been
he's
playing
a
well with that ton of ice time. So,
and he's
and
always a
obviously they're
great
steamrolling. Yeah.
yeah, and he's always a great hits and blocks guy. So I've definitely been known to stream him when Vegas has a good schedule, and sometimes hold him for a little while in bangers catch leagues. Paul Cotter has been hot as well. But yeah, again, another guy that I think is playing pretty low in the lineup on Vegas, so I don't think you can expect consistent production there. Siegenthaler and Michael McLeod, I guess we'll group them together. I think there's not a ton of streaming candidates left for New Jersey, and people are just trying to cash in. They have the exact same schedule as Washington to finish out the week, so I think those are just guys that are left that people are trying to pick up. And then William Karlsson, another guy that's been red hot, but I don't think it'll last too long. So yeah, I mean, no
he's been
surprises here.
collecting points in like the ugliest ways, like where you're just
Yeah.
like, oh, you're not going to keep that going. So
Yeah,
I like McNabb. I've seen some absolutely sick play from Cotter, but I mean, in the situation that he's in for them, like you can't expect that to continue. So none of these really jump out at me. The situation best probably for Ryan Johansson, and
yeah.
I have the most faith in Vetrano, but he's moved on. Oh well.
I don't know if this is a serious question, but Michael's asking, what do I do with Mark-Edward Vlasic? Punt him into the sun, I guess.
Into the sun.
I'm not sure why you have Mark-Edward Vlasic on your team, but what is this, 2016? That's all I'm gonna say. All right.
Pickles don't expire, my guy. Pickles don't expire.
I guess not. Yeah. Top 5 most dropped skaters over the last 5 days, or sorry, over the last 24 hours. What do you got here, Binksy?
Your number one slot here, JT Comfer, then Josh Anderson. Third place is JVR. Then Leo Carlson, the man who doesn't get more than 2 games a week, and Adam Ruzicka in the 5 spot.
Yeah, so JT Comfer has just not been converting. He hasn't been cashing in on I mean, the red hot Detroit Red Wings offense. He hasn't been one of the guys that's
he's the only one.
Yeah, he's the only one that's not scoring. He's not even shooting, so that's a bit of a problem there. So not doing much peripherally, just kind of being JT Comfer, I guess, like just a bunch of nothing. And I think people were getting excited because he's going to play, but there are better options even on Detroit to be picking up off the waiver wire. Josh Anderson had that Monday game. I think people were picking him up. He was on the top power play for Montreal, but now he's just playing on the more busy nights. So I imagine people are dropping him now. JVR is a weird one. I'm not super sure. Like, did he fall off power play 1? And now I want to look that up. But I haven't been keeping track of the Boston Bruins so much here outside of Matt Poitras. But Van Riemsdyk is down on line 3, and Poitras actually is on line 2 now. So they've loaded up the top line with Marchand, Pasternak, Zaka, and then they've got DeBrusque, Poitras, and Morgan Geekie on line 2, and then Van Riemsdyk, Coyle, Frederick is line 3. So maybe that's why they're dropping JVR down the lineup.
Interestingly enough, though, that trio with Coyle and JVR and Frederick had the largest percentage of even strength time on ice against Chicago.
There you go.
So
there you go. So yeah, I'm not really sure what's going on there. I don't know what their power play is looking like. He was on the top power play, so maybe he's dropped off of there. But
Leo, he got a big bulk of it actually. All told, over 50% against Chicago.
Okay, so that's a super weird one. It could be that he's just not scoring the last couple of games, but it sounds like he is still getting pretty good deployment, good ice time. So I mean, better than he's had in years. So I don't know. I think I'd still be considering JVR as a streamer.
Yeah, I'm fine with
Leo
it.
Carlson, they announced that Pat Verbeek has said that they want to. I mean, they want to healthy scratch him throughout the first half of the season, so he can be a horse
management.
In the second. Yeah,
2
it's
games
very
a week
strange.
at most.
I'm not sure. I don't really understand that at all. But I mean, it is what it is. So you can't really trust him to be in the lineup, and you're not really going to know whether or not he's going to be. So a little like more volatility than even having a rookie on your roster at all. for Leo Carlson there, at least in the first half of the season. So that's probably why he's getting dropped. And then Adam Ruzicka, I think I think he's hurt right now. He's day to day.
Yeah, he sustained an injury, not expected to play in the next game, and as much as he's getting great deployment, they're just having a ton of bumps that they're taking in Calgary. So, like I dropped him myself. I believe in the player, and I think Calgary is better than the record would indicate, right? Like
Yeah.
I know Nate was just talking about this on the puzzling players. Like they're a better team metrics wise than the record bears out. And I'd be
Yeah.
fine going back to the well with Ruzicka, but him being hurt and the situation not being amazing right now doesn't bother me at all to drop him.
All right. So my out of the week is Cam Atkinson. So he is 6% rostered right now, which is surprisingly low in my opinion. He has 4 goals out of the gate. He's averaging just under 18 minutes time on ice. He's playing on line 1 with Sean Couturier and Owen Tippett, as well as power play 1. His shot and chance rates are in line with his career averages. And honestly, man, he's like, when he's healthy, he's a 65 point pace player for the most part, or he
Okay.
was in Columbus at times. And I mean, he just hasn't played a really long time. And he was he was supposed to be the Torts advocate for this team because supposedly him and Torts get along really well. They got along in Columbus. And he was really excited when he came over, but he wasn't there last year. So they didn't have him in the locker room for that. But he's getting primo deployment. This Flyers team looks better than we all expected. I'm not sure how much that's going to last, but their underlying numbers as a team actually look pretty good. So they're doing something well out of the gate. I think they've got a lot of young guys on the team. Sean Couturier, I think, makes a massive difference, and as does Cam Atkinson. They just didn't have offensive options last year, and Couturier is just such a great all around player. But yeah, Cam Atkinson, I think, is going to reap the benefits, and he's a good player, man. Like he's very much a rosterable player. So I
Very
would stream him for
consistent.
next week because
Yeah.
Philly has a good schedule next week, and he I mean, you may even be hanging on to him. I wouldn't be surprised to see his rostership go up quite a bit after this week. So if Atkinson is available, I'd be picking him up for sure.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I'm down for that, right? Super consistent in a great situation for him anyway in Philadelphia. I'm curious though, when you landed on that, right? Like obviously an important part of it is the schedule for the
Yeah.
Flyers. Was Scott Lawton, Joel Farabee, were they in a short list for you, or is it a completely separate tier? Are you like still willing to go to the well with the Flyers if it's not Atkinson, or is it Atkinson or try somewhere else? Or even like, are you thinking about Travis Sanheim? I've seen him get picked up in a bunch of places. We're talking about the same schedule. We're talking about kind of the same level of burn from the team. Like, is it just Atkinson for you, or are you just more focused on the schedule at hand and the consistency in his history?
I think there are a number of people on Philly that you could stream. So you mentioned Scott Lawton, you mentioned Joel Farabee. They're all playing really well out of the gate, look pretty good in their underlying numbers as well. So I just like Atkinson's situation a little better. I like his past. I just think uh, he's so readily available for a
Yeah.
potential 65 point player and a guy that's done it in the past. So maybe he's not that guy anymore. I don't know. But his numbers under the hood look solid. He's generating quite a bit. He's line 1, power play 1. So he's stapled to Sean Couturier right now, and Sean Couturier looks great. He looks healthy. And I'm just a big fan of Atkinson here. So I've always liked the guy. Not like a massive fan, but I've always had time for Cam Atkinson. So in terms of like when I look at all of those guys together with Philly having that really good schedule next week, that's the guy that stands out for me the most. I mean, also you could stream Couturier in, like he's another guy, but everyone just seems to be talking about Couturier. I think that's the other thing is that
Yeah, that was my thought process too. Yeah.
he's been a hot topic of conversation. I don't think enough people are talking about Cam Atkinson right now. All right, who you
I dig
got this week?
So, like I alluded to, I really mulled over Travis Sanheim. I wanted to like deep dive into it and see, is this a player that's like clearly going to be the guy for the Flyers just in general, not just over this advantageous schedule, right? And he's virtually splitting everything down the middle with Cam York, and Cam York like way less available, and super unlikely that Ristolainen comes back and does anything of note. They kind of solidified his undisclosed injury is going to keep him out for quite a bit longer. And really, the only competition there for the defensemen for the Flyers are like very young, not super defensively solid offensive defensemen. So I don't have a lot of faith that anyone is going to supplant Sanheim. But at the same time, I'm not really excited about it. So my plan really switched from a 7-day period to end of this week and then into next week. So as ugly as it sounds, my addition for this week, just for the remainder of this scoring period, Tomas Hertl at 45%, line one, power play one, 5 points in 6 games, or much more available Anthony Duclair at left wing at 2%. Now, Barabanov ruled out for a long-term injury today with a broken finger breaking in most recent game. So there is literally no one else in town. The Sharks seriously averaging only slightly more than 1 goal per game. So you are seriously putting all of your chips on either one of these guys to be the scorer in the game for them. I feel like it's Hertl, but it very well could be Duclair, right? Like either one of these guys are going to be the one to shoot the puck. So
Yeah.
um, it would depend to me more on which position you need rather than availability. I think both of them are certainly players that you're going to be able to just go out and get. Like you talked about earlier, there are some serious streamer schedules that are week long right now, and those teams are pretty much all spent at this point in the week. So I think Hertl, your best bet. Duclair, your most likely. Both players are viable, if not sexy streams with Barabanov shelved. I, of course, would have said Frank Petrano, but he passed him the 50% threshold today. And as a side note to these suggestions for the Sharks, their next week's schedule, not great to begin with. So immediately would be flipping to someone on Anaheim or even possibly one of these Stars players that have been dropped as they go into a much more beneficial schedule early in the week next week. But for the end of this week, really beneficial schedule for you with the Sharks. Number 1A Hertl, number 1B Duclair, and neither one of them feel great, but they do feel possible.
Yeah, I think if you're going to pick up a Shark, Hertl's your guy if he's there. He has been the guy. Like he said, he's got 5 points in 6 games. Shockingly, like they've been not scoring at all. So the fact that he's getting in on everything is crazy. He's also playing well over 20 minutes a game, so they're riding him. I mean, I definitely like that. When you're talking about Sanheim, I did want to make a point. Philadelphia has been great 5v5, but their power play has still been bad. It's not been very good at all. They're not generating a ton, and they're not converting either. So that's why I'm not super interested in Sanheim.
Me neither. Nothing in there says to me this is going to be great. It just kind of seems like the best option in a bad situation. And Sanheim's not a young dude. Like we've seen him be who he's going to be, and unfortunately, he's in a great situation. And if you're rostering York, then you're excited to see that flip on its head, probably. But there's no guarantees there at all.
All right, so this is a bit of a controversial drop, but my drop of the week is Brandon Hagel. He's playing line 2, power play 2. It seems like they're not going to put him on power play one or line one for that matter. They've got Alex Barre-Boulet on the top line right now with Point and Kucherov. So I'm thinking that Hagel is probably going to stay on line two. But I mean, him and Nick Paul have looked pretty good. They've got Steven Stamkos there too. So I mean, not the worst situation 5v5, but he's just not going to play on the power play. And his shot rates have decreased over the last 3 games. His ice time has gone down. Tampa Bay has a bad schedule next week. So and at the end of this week, frankly. So
brutal at the end of this week.
So he's a guy that may be a fringe guy on your roster, maybe in shallower leagues, maybe in deeper leagues. You're probably not wanting to drop him. But I mean, a guy like Nick Paul would be a guy you might want to drop as well. But yeah, their schedule is just stinky right now. So I would probably be letting go of Brandon Hagel if you're really struggling to find someone to drop.
I am honestly all about it, and I have felt that way since reviewing notes about the schedule for the season. In that Tampa, and I've talked about this before, Tampa is going to be playing on heavy nights for a ton of the year, and a player like Hagel just isn't going to crack your starting roster when the slate is completely full like that. And you're going to see a bunch of schedules like this one where it's broken up, and when they are playing, they're playing on heavy nights. And as much as I like Hagel, and as much as I think the ceiling for him on Tampa should be like a top 6, top power play option, we've seen Paul be a top power play option for them instead, and they're playing no names, in situations where you'd be like, clearly this is where Hagel should be playing. So like, I have no problems with that drop, and on paper it feels really bad, but you dig a little bit deeper under the hood and you're like, okay, fine, great, bye, thank you for your service.
Who you dropping?
I also am dropping a player that you wouldn't necessarily expect from Florida, especially say 4 or 5 weeks ago. My drop for this week, Gustav Forsling at 61% rostered and dropping 6% today alone. First pair, but minimal power play 2 time, and I mean minimal power play 2 time. OEL is eating his lunch in that regard. No shorthanded time, even at over average 24 minutes average time on ice. Never more than 2 fantasy points in a game this season thus far, which is horrendous considering how much time he is spending on the ice. Like, every comment out there is just like, this dude is out for a skate. It's kind of unreal. Injury returns on the horizon for Florida, so long-term perspectives, not incredible. And 2 games over the next 7 days, Seattle and Boston. So I pulled the trigger. I dropped him in the one league that I was rostering him, and I hemmed and hawed for too long about it, honestly. It feels so weird to say on a player that's rostered over 60% and was like a consensus like top 12 round pick in defense. But I thought it was a steal at draft time, and like OEL has just well supplanted him, and things are only going to get murkier for them. So I'm all about it. Go ahead and drop him.
Yeah, I'm with you. I dropped him as well in a league that I had him. So I'm definitely with you there. He, I mean, he used to be a shot rate monster, and he's just not shooting the puck. Like, I don't know what happened to this guy. So, yeah, I mean, it makes me really sad. Like, he was a sleeper for me going into the year, and it just didn't happen. The OEL experiment has continued longer than I expected. So,
yeah, OEL and Erod are eating up all of his shots.
Yeah. All right, let's go to from zero to hero. So that is our 0G segment. So we're gonna talk about some trends in terms of goalie ads and drops. We're gonna talk about guys that struggled last week. We're gonna talk about a goalie tandem that is maybe shifting in terms of the 1A 1B scenario, and then we're gonna talk about our 0 to hero bets in our game that we're playing. We missed last week because I was not here. But we're going to talk about how we did in week 1 and who we're going to pick for this week. So, our most added goalies within the last 24 hours are Hunter Shepard, Jonas Johansson, James Reimer, Jake Allen, and Carl Vejmelka. Hunter Shepard, playing for the Washington Capitals tonight, has allowed 4 goals.
Wow.
It is 5-4
Wow.
for the Washington Capitals, actually.
They started 3-0. I hadn't seen the
Yeah,
score since then. He's given up 4 goals since
he's
then.
just given up 4 goals. Yeah. I think
Damn.
New Jersey scored 4 straight, and then I think Washington scored again, so they got the lead back. But wow. Actually, it was
Wow.
4-3 New Jersey, and then and then Washington scored 2 in the third period. This is what a game. It's a barn burner. Anyways, so maybe not the best option. He's only in there, I think, because Charlie Lindgren is hurt right now. Jonas Johansson had a shutout the other night, so I'm not surprised that people are picking him up. But Tampa's schedule not super great, so I mean, I was mulling over picking him up in a couple of leagues too, but I just don't like the schedule for him right now. James Reimer, that's a bit of a surprise. I mean, he's been good, but Ville Husso is clearly the starter there. Jake Allen has been surprisingly, actually quietly very good. The Montreal Canadiens have been pretty good. They're 3-2-1 to start the year. So very quietly, I haven't really been paying attention, to be honest, but they have a 500 or a winning record, depending on the way you look at it. And then Carl Vejmelka has been awesome. But again, like, that's a situation where they're kind of going straight tandem with him and Ingram right now. So, and the Arizona schedule is shit. It's been so bad. Like it must get really good late in the year, because it feels like they've barely played. But all right. I don't know, any comments on these added goaltenders? Are there any of these ads that you're jumping all over?
So, I mean, the pedigree of Hunter Shepard is like really, really good, right? Like multiple championships in college, Calder Cup MVP, right? Like been very successful at the junior level, but Washington not so good. This is a hell of a way to jump just straight into the fire. So wasn't a stream for me, but I did consider it given the pedigree. But it's gonna
Yeah.
sound so stupid, but the defining factor for me is that he's not super big. He's like just a little over 6 foot, and I really love one of the just giant hulking Goliath goalies. Those are the ones I want to push the chips on when I don't know much about them. Johansson got a great situation. I will talk about Reimer here in a little bit. You are absolutely right. Jake Allen has been surprising, as have Montreal, but I can't trust it. I just can't trust it.
No.
I can't do
No,
it.
me
Can't
either.
do it. Vejmelka has been surprisingly rough, right? Like fantasy wise, you would think it would be a little bit better than that, especially considering they have been better. But as you said, the schedule has just been just atrocious for them thus far. So hard to rely on.
Yeah, and he's
Not
he's only playing half the games too. Like, Ingram's been getting starts, so it's like you're getting like
it's
almost
really, really
like
dry.
1 to
Yeah.
2 games a week for Vejmelka. So, like, part of the value for him is that he was a volume starter last year. But then near the end of the year, that didn't end up being the case. They were sharing the net with Ingram, so that's what they're doing this year. So he doesn't have as much value. So he is available for spot starts a little bit more, and he's been good when he's played. He's just not playing a ton. So, and then the most dropped goalies, we've got Anthony Stolars, Eric Comrie, James Reimer again, Stuart Skinner. That's a big one. And Antti Ranta. So, Stolars had a spot start the other day for Florida. It was his first start of the year. So I think people just added him in and then are dropping him. Comrie, same thing. James Reimer. I mean, yeah, I mean, I'm confused by the number of ads and drops. It's a little bit weird. Stuart Skinner is not a big surprise, but he's still pretty highly rostered. Jack Campbell had a rough game though last night, so you may see Skinner get some playing time again. That situation in Edmonton is rough, man. It's not
That
looking good
show
right now.
Ain't no good.
That's right. And Auntie Ranta as well has been very bad, but we will get into that soon. We'll talk
Yes, we
about that
will.
again. All right. Our biggest steamer of the week was actually my boy, Elias Samsonov. He has been awful, just terrible. Cannot stop a beach ball right now. And that kind of leads us into our Tando Trouble segment because Ilya Samsonov in 4 games this year has an .831 save percentage, which is 62nd out of 66 goalies that have played so far this year. He is also last in the NHL in goal save above expected. Joseph Woll, on the other hand, has played 3 games, one in relief of Ilya Samsonov. He has a .958 save percentage. He's among the best in the league in a goal save above expected. And Sheldon Keefe has been really critical of Ilya Samsonov, saying you can't allow 3 goals on 4 shots, which is what he did against Tampa the other night, which got him pulled. And then Woll came in, stopped everything, looked amazing, and the Leafs came back and won. He's also been clear that Woll is already pushing for starts. So it seems like there is probably a shift in playing time coming. Woll is 52% rostered right now. He's not considered a 0G candidate, but if he's out there, I would definitely be picking him up because it's looking like things are swinging his direction in terms of playing time in Toronto. So I don't know. How are you feeling about that, buddy?
Your gut when you hear that dichotomy of stats between him and Samsonov is like, oh well, he must have been getting the lighter portion of the slate, right? But those 2 wins against Tampa and Washington, 29 and 36 saves respectively, and his loss, a 1-4 loss against Chicago when they absolutely lit it up. So it's, man, I don't know enough about Wool. I remember asking you about him and his prospects last season, right? I don't know if about him to be like, this is the dude, but it's definitely not Samsonov. The way that he's been playing, like the dude has been a sieve and he's getting called out publicly, which I mean,
Ice Coat.
other than like an NFL quarterback, the only person that people do not call out from a management or ownership is a goalie, right? Like you got to have the mindset strong, and like that's very very telling that Sheldon Keefe would say something like that. So yeah, at 58%, if you're looking for a stream and hold player, I think Wool is definitely in until told otherwise. I mean, 65 saves and only 1 goal against in the last 2 starts. Like that's nuts, dude. That's nuts against anybody. That's crazy. So that's really good.
He's been awesome in a limited sample size in the NHL. He's had a weird development curve just because he's been hurt quite a bit in the minors, and he is. He's looked great. Last year, he had a record-breaking start to the season where I believe he won 11 or 12 his first 11 or 12 games in the AHL, and then got called up to the Leafs and played really well with them. So I'm feeling good about Woll. This is one of the goalie tandem situations where a lot of people, including me, were going into the year were like wanting to watch carefully. But right away, it seems like things are shifting here. So I would have thought it would be more likely for Hofer to be taking over for Binnington, but Binnington's actually been really good so far. So it is what it is. I'm excited about Joseph Woll for sure. Blake Creamer asks, Binksy, is that a Hoffman jersey?
Hell no. Hell no. This is Jumbo Joe, baby. I had to put it on.
Jumbo
Anytime that we're gonna discuss the San Jose Sharks in a fantasy hockey show, you got to show them some love because that is not going to happen a lot this year. So I had to hop on here and throw on the big Jumbo.
All right, let's give our 0 to hero picks here. So actually, let's talk about last week's verdict, or at least it was 2 weeks ago. So I got the win. I picked
Mhm.
Elvis Merzlikins for the first week.
Yeah,
You picked Antti Ranta.
I sure did.
Merzlikins has had a decent start to the year, despite, I mean, missing time with an injury. So he actually didn't get into all the games that week, but he still had a better week than Ranta, who I believe I believe was almost negative a couple points.
Mhm.
Like
Yes.
Carolina's goaltending has been really bad. They have the most goals against out of any team in the league so far. The
Yeah.
Carolina Hurricanes. Isn't that insane?
Mhm. It is
So
insane.
Kachekov's been bad, Ranta's been bad, Anderson's been decent, but he's hurt. So yeah, I mean they're hoping and praying for Anderson to get back. So if Anderson's on the waiver wire and he gets back healthy, I'd be picking him up because I think that they're probably going to ride him because
Yeah.
it seems like these two guys have been non-options so far. So
Yeah, Ranta really, really bad. And the thing that I was kind of sure was going to happen in this interim was that they were gonna like shield and shelter Freddie, which happened pretty much immediately, and nothing doing. One of the best
nope.
defensive teams in hockey has not been good defensively. And even though Freddie was hurt, he wasn't really hurt. And he is, by Rod the Bod's admission, if he gives the team the green light, they're going to start him in the next game. So,
Okay,
um,
there you go.
yeah. So, like, Kachetkov back up with the team and Antti Ranta not playing well. So it's ugly. That was, I was I was wrong for the right reasons, so I can accept that.
Yeah, that's fair. So I lead the season series 1-0. So and I also get first pick this week because you got first pick last time. So my pick
True.
is I'm gonna go back to the well with Elvis Merzlikins. So they actually, you know what? I don't think they play Anaheim. I put that in the notes, but they just played Anaheim and lost. But he's most likely to get the next three starts. One of them's against Montreal. The other two are against Dallas and New York. Dallas, obviously, is probably not a great situation, but the Islanders are not a really great offensive team. So I'm feeling good about Merzlikins. I think he's the most likely to get the most starts out of the guys that are less than 50% rostered. I also think Columbus is okay. Like they haven't looked great out of the gate, but they haven't looked awful either. And Merzlikins it seems like he's I don't know. He's looking a little better than he did last year, where he was again like Ronson and Kachekov a non-option. So my pick is Elvis Merzlikins this week. Who's your pick, Bigsy?
I feel pretty good about Merzlikins, and I'm gonna tell you this all the time. Like emotionally, I just can't do it with Elvis. But even as we expected Columbus to be a much better team this year, and they have really fallen short of that thus far. It's also been a hard gelling process. They've had some injuries to major players in and out of the lineup, etc. And defensively, they look much better to me. So I am more in on Merzlikins than I was 2 weeks ago, and you were totally right 2 weeks ago. So I don't hate it, but I got to walk you through my process here because it's it's hard out there for you zero Gers right now for this schedule. Okay, so just just stay with me as I work through this. Okay. Cam Talbot was my first option, but unfortunately, he hit 51%. He's out of range. So if he's out there, he is, from what I can tell, really taking over in LA. The upcoming schedule is rough, but I believe and I'm willing to see it out for this immediate period. So for those of you that are out there, he's not eligible for my bet this week, but I still recommend you go out and get him. Grubauer has been an absolute sieve. Seattle has been way on the wrong side of puck luck, and their next four games are against Detroit, who is absolutely on a tear right now. Their metrics would tell you that things could go the other way, so think about that for a spot start. Detroit, Carolina, Florida, and Tampa, all four of those games in this 7-day slate are on the road. So things are going to be tough for Grooves, especially if they start off tough. It's going to be really tough to rebound. My guess is he gets 75% to 100% of those starts, but it doesn't go well. Campbell Soup gets the New York Rangers and Calgary only until late next week. He's out for me. Likely to split. They're in a bad place. They're playing offensively talented teams, if not unlucky teams. So my head is telling me that Gibson is the man to go with. They get Boston, Philadelphia, and Pittsburgh as the best option, with Lucas Dahl still probable to continue the swapping starts trend and go against
Mhm.
Philadelphia, right? So likely Boston and Pittsburgh for Gibby. My gut is telling me to go with James Reimer. They play Winnipeg, Boston, and the Islanders. And I think he's going to continue his comparatively stellar play and draw closer to an even split in the net with Huso. Give me Reimer. I think Gibby gets absolutely wrecked by Boston and Pittsburgh, like really veteran teams going against a very young Anaheim team there. I have a feeling those game scripts go really poorly for Anaheim, at least in terms of Gibson. So my gut is telling me Reimer. I'm gonna go with Reimer. I feel like I could be wrong about that, but he has actually looked pretty good. As much as Detroit has just been punching way above their weight class right now, like I think that at least goes a little bit longer. And man, if he heats up and you're on the right side of that tandem and they continue to play well, you could be in a really good place.
So you've got Elvis. I've got Jimmy Rhymes. Mike says Skinner is rocking the Fury gear, likely to play the outdoor game. And I will say to you, Mike, this wouldn't be the first time that. I mean, it's happened before where someone's been gearing up to play in an outdoor game, a goaltender specifically, and the coach has started the other guy. I don't know if you remember the Luongo and Eddie Lack goaltending situation in Vancouver. There was the Reimer Bernier situation in Toronto. So I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, Edmonton's in a desperate situation right now. So if Skinner shits the bed again, you may be going with Campbell. Doesn't matter what kind of gear he's got. So, all right. So now let's go to the mailbag, our hockey hotline segment. We've got a few questions. I believe we got one from Nate. We haven't had a question from Nate in a long time, so we're going to start with that one. Nate asks, rank these 0G guys: Gibson, Grubauer, Merzlikins, Allen. Who do you got, Binksy?
I'm gonna go with Grubauer, Gibson, Merzlikins, Allen. Who do you think?
I'm going to go Grubauer, Merzlikins, Gibson, Allen. The reason I move Gibson down is just because of the way that they've been rotating between him and Dostal. I just don't think he's going to get the volume that we're used to seeing from John Gibson. So that's, but yeah, I'm pretty well in line with you there. So yeah, that would be the way I'd rank it for sure. Gain reach. My boy Mike asks, is Ryan Hartman for real moving forward? So, I mean, if you're talking about him getting 5-point games, I don't think so. But I think that was an aberration. But I mean, Ryan Hartman's for real. Like and you know what? He's going to continue to play on that top line with I mean, especially now with Zuccarello and Kaprizov. So as long as he's there, I'm stoked about Ryan Hartman. So I would say, yeah, he's for real. I believe in him. What do you think, Binksy? Do you believe in Ryan Hartman? I think you're a Hartman supporter.
I believe in Hartman. I especially believe in Hartman when Hartman believes in Hartman. When there's some sort of doubt in the organization, in the coaching team, etc., when they publicly display that he needs to get going, that seems to mess with him a little bit, right? But the situation could not be better for him in Minnesota. Like, they need a player who plays physical on that line to go with the very small statured wings, right? Even though Rossi is leading the team in even strength shots, he's not been moved to the wing. They're not going to move him to the wing. Boldy is hurt. Eriksson Ek is really solid in his role and is a viable fantasy player, but they don't really make any indication that he's going to supplant Hartman in any way. So is Ryan Hartman for real? No. Is he pretty much guaranteed to give you what he's been giving you? I mean, 5 point game aside, right? Yeah, absolutely. Like, and especially considering that he's right wing eligible. That was a huge factor for me come draft season. It is a huge factor for me in terms of evaluating whether I like Hartman or not. If he was a center, fine. Like streaming, come and go, take the hot streaks, great. But at right wing, that's really going to help you throughout the season.
All right. Chris Hollywood asks, we have seen Larkin and Cat off to blistering hot starts this season. Where do you see them settling in point wise by season end based off what we've seen so far? So my thought would be they have a crazy on ice shooting percentage. Both of them, because they're both on the ice at all times together. But Alex DeBrincat, I think, is shooting between 20 and 30% in his shooting percentage. I looked at Dylan Larkin last night just to see the viability of his statistics, and pretty much across the board, like nothing looks super outline other than the on ice shooting percentage, which is like 20 or 21%. So I think there's going to be some regression coming as a team for Detroit, but those are both guys that I could see being point per game or slightly above. I don't see them being top of the league for the whole season. Like this is just a hot start for the Red Wings. And yeah, it seems like they're finding some chemistry, those two, and that's great. But yeah, I could see career highs for both of them, but I don't see it being like that much above 82 points. You know what I mean? Like point per game. So that's kind of where I land on it. What do you think, Binksy?
So the actual players I'm all about, and to see them start off a new tandem as like the 1-2 for the franchise is really bolstering, right? To think like Detroit's going to be a better team. This is an excellent addition for them to bring in DeBrincat. Um, like all of those signs are positive, but the on ice shooting percentage, the puck luck metrics for Detroit just scream that this can't be something that continues to happen throughout the season. And their opponents thus far: Columbus, Pittsburgh, Ottawa, Calgary, and Seattle. With exception to Pittsburgh, all of those teams kind of floundering a little bit. And in this last week, Pittsburgh also floundering, right? So like they have played a slew of teams who are not their best selves right now, and the time on ice for each one of these two players is all over the place, like varying minutes night to night. So I just don't know what to expect from them. And I don't think, let's see, I am looking at Dylan Larkin right now. 1 point, 3 points, 3 points, 2 points, 3 points thus far, and a little bit more up and down for DeBrincat, but very similar in terms of averages, right? Like 1 point one night, 4 points the next night, etc. And that's too much, right? Like just like you said, I could see both of these players being point per game, but the first 6 games is like huge for them. So that means at some point there's going to be a dip, right? And are they for real? Yeah, they're for real, but they're not this. They're definitely not this. Like this is best in the league stuff, and that just can't. It just can't happen. Like they're just not good of a team, top to bottom, to do that all season long. Like there's no way. There's no way. So, man.
All right. Let's move on to the next question. So Zudo is asking about Ryan Johansson. What do you think of Ryan Johansson this year? Second line with Rantanen and first power play. Could he have a season like Kadri did in Colorado? I believe we had another guy ask about Johansson as well. So that's kind of why we included Glitch in the Matrix asked as well. I see you, Glitch in the Matrix. But I mean, no, I don't see him having a season like Kadri did in Colorado. I think they're completely different players. Kadri's a high volume shooter and a guy that's just like that carries the puck a ton. and has always had I always shot at a fairly low percentage, and he's one of those guys where you're like, oh man, if he just starts converting a little bit better, he could really pop. Obviously, I never saw him being like 100-point pace player, and that was a huge aberration. But I don't see Johansson even having that in the tank at all. Like not even if he rides high percentages, right? He had a year like that in Nashville 2 years ago where he shot 22%, and it still wasn't like groundbreaking. It still wasn't even close to where Kadri was. So I think that I mean, I could see him having a better season than he did last year, and maybe similar to what he did 2 years ago. His shot rates are actually, to start the year, are actually higher than they've ever been, or at least the highest since he was in Columbus when he was like a 70, 80 point player. So I mean, that there's something to be said about that. He's been shooting like almost 3 shots a game. His individual scoring chances 4/60 are 13.68, which are way higher than anything he's ever done. So I mean, there's probably some regression coming there, I would think, but he is also playing on the Colorado power play, which is, I mean, incredible. So if he's getting opportunities there and he's playing with Rantanen in 5v5, I could see. I mean, I think he may become a viable fantasy option here, especially if he's shooting a little bit. Like that's new for him, at least the last little bit. Um, so yeah, I wouldn't say I'm not as high on him, and I don't expect him to have Kadri level production. But I think he's definitely streamable now, and maybe even holdable as well. What do you think, buddy?
I don't have much to say other than that I think he's a viable stream player. But, we're talking about somebody for most of their career, the absolute upper end when they were a top line player, right? Is like 60 points, right? Doesn't shoot a ton, shoots a pretty high percentage when he does shoot, but they don't need him to shoot. Like when he's on the ice, he's not their preferred shooter in any
Mhm.
situation. So, I mean, I feel like there's only a few teams where we're like, okay, you're like happy to have Ryan Johansson, and Colorado is it, right? They're probably top of that list, but he's only eligible at center. There's a glut of centers. The situation is prime, but like there's nothing about Ryan Johansson that says to me like this could be a point per game player in the way that Kadri exploded to be. Like
No.
I don't see that comparison at all. And I'd much rather have players in his same echelon in the free agency tier than Ryan Johansson specifically. But I'm sure there are going to be plenty of weeks this season where they have a really advantageous schedule, and we're telling you to go out and get Ryan Johansson. But in general, not super excited. I think it's fine. I think you'd be fine. And some weeks you're gonna be like everything's gonna be roses when you roster Johansson, and some weeks he's gonna shoot like once or twice in 3 games and get you like
Have
a
nothing.
secondary assist point and nothing else. So
Yeah.
I think both are as likely as the other.
Yep. 100% agree with that. All right, let's go to our last question. This is from Ryan K. How much rope do I give Ehlers? So Ryan K is actually in my cupful division, and we've been sending each other trade offers, trying to sell high and buy low with each other, and it's kind of like a chess game right now. And I think we've both figured out that we're both too smart to fall for that. But so Ryan K, how much rope do I give Ehlers? I mean, uh, that's a tough one. I mean, it really depends on how much draft pedigree you spent on him, um, or draft capital, I guess. I just I don't feel great about Ehlers. He's getting some deployment now, playing on Power Play 1. So I like that a little bit better, but he's still not getting a ton of ice time. He's clearly not in Bonus's good books. It's not translating into anything on the score sheet. So, I mean, I think he's definitely a droppable player at this point. But at the same time, he got dropped in one of my leagues, and I picked him up just because I could fit him into my schedule the rest of the week. And he's kind of like, if he pops, he's going to be awesome. So anyways, I just don't think he's in favor with the coach. Although Rick Bowness is not actually coaching right now because
I
his
was going to ask you about that. Do you know of any news about his possible return?
I haven't heard anything. I've only heard that he's out indefinitely to be with his wife. She's having some health issues. So
Yeah, just a leave of absence noted by
yeah.
the Jets PR. There's no indication of when he'll come back, like, at all. So
Right. Yeah. And like I don't want to be the person to be like, does that change things for Nikolai Ehlers, or like look at it from Ehlers' perspective, because that's really kind of tone deaf. But at the same time, it's like, realistically, does the assistant coach have a better opinion of Ehlers than Bonus does? We don't know. So maybe for the next little bit, Ehlers.
here's the rub for me, because, like you said, it's insensitive, but what we talk about is fantasy hockey, and we're
Yeah.
not doctors. And I love Rick Bowness as a hockey
No
fan,
disrespect.
but no disrespect, but my initial thought as far as an interim coach is, if you're an interim coach, you do what your coach has set in motion until they get back, or until you're told something that we haven't been told, which is that Bonus, won't be back with the team in any capacity anytime soon, right? So, like, especially in this situation, if you're the interim coach, you don't come in and just start throwing papers around the office and like redlining things, like,
Yeah.
you
No,
stay
you're
the
right.
course and you follow instructions via text message when you get them. You know what I mean? Like, that's what I know about interim coaches and interim GMs and managers. Like, the interim tag is there for a reason, right? Like, you're not the real deal. So it would really shock me if the interim coach comes in and it was just like, finally just hits the go button on Ehlers. So my initial reaction to how much rope do I give Ehlers is enough to like, you bought in for $1 in a waiver that we're in together, and I think that's fine, right? Like, I
Yeah.
think it's okay to continue betting on Ehlers. I think we have hit the point where it's also okay to just cut out and try something different, right? Like,
Yeah.
Raj and I were talking about this on last week's Rolling Lines. Like, he's finally getting the situation that we've all been waiting for, and we're still not really seeing
We're still
anything.
waiting.
So
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly.
So if you want to cut bait, go ahead and do it. I'm not going to stop you.
100%. Well, that's all we have for today. Please leave us a review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. We have this little competition going between Spotify, the Spotify listeners, and the Apple Podcast listeners. Spotify still got the edge. We did get a review from someone on Apple Podcasts saying we can't let Spotify win. So let's rally these Apple Podcast listeners. Come on, let's go. I'm an Apple Podcast guy.
Come on, it's literally in the name
We
of the
need
show,
to.
people. Come on.
It's so, yeah, like, what are we doing here? And we can tell by the analytics that there are more Apple Podcast listeners than there are Spotify listeners. So there's no excuse. There's no excuse. So let's rise and review. Let's go. All right. Also like, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Like, we're having a lot of fun. We're streaming live on YouTube. We're streaming live on X or Twitter or whatever the fuck you want to call it. YouTube, we've seen a lot of growth there, but we want some more. We're never satisfied. So if you're into looking at our beautiful faces, or if you want to join us and get notifications when we're going live, subscribe to us on YouTube. Hit the bell. And we may read a comment like this when you do it live. Tyler Wilson says, Timo finally showed up tonight. Thank God. He scored a goal. Timo Meyer. you don't have moments like this every day where you can share the fact that Timo Meyer finally scored a goal with everybody. So you can have those moments if you subscribe to us on YouTube.
I told you so.
Also, if you like,
I
what's that?
couldn't. I said I told you so. I couldn't put it back in my mouth. I told you so. I told you so. Although I was super wrong about Jack Hughes. I saw a stat before we rush out the door that he has tied for the most amount of points in the initial slate as Mario Lemieux. So
Yeah, crazy, man. He had 3 more tonight too.
If you're a hater like I am, you were way wrong. So
yeah, he's
can't win
looking.
them
He
all.
sure is looking like Connor McDavid. It's pretty crazy. All right, check out the Apples and Genos Patreon. Check out the Apples and Genos Discord server. Follow us on X. Binksy's at Binklemania. Nate's at Apples Genos. Blake's at Blake Creamer AG. I'm at Just Josh and 4-1. Please practice safe stats and happy streaming. Have a good one, folks.
Good night, world.